Most men don't tell themselves they'll stay stuck forever. They tell themselves something smaller. Just one more time. One more night, one more stressful day, one more rough week, and it feels harmless because nothing explodes. No crisis, no confrontation, no consequences you can point to. But in this episode, I want to talk about the cost that most men never calculate. The hidden cost of just one more time. My name is Sathiya Sam. Welcome to the Man Within podcast. I'm so glad that you're here because I'm all about helping guys like you walk in integrity, purpose, and identity. And truthfully, that's what I've been doing for the last 7 years of my life. I've helped over 1,000 guys quit pornography, and this podcast has been downloaded over 1 million times by men who are serious about becoming the man that God has made them to be. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad that we're about to get into some really useful content for you. Now, before I do that, very quickly, if you are struggling with pornography and you want some help quitting, I have a book called The Last Relapse. It details my full system, all the way from A to Z. It's been read by over 20,000 guys who rave about it. We get emails, messages, comments all the time about how much guys have been blessed by the book. You can get a free copy at thelastrelapsebook.com. My gift to you as a listener of the show. Let's get into the material today. So this whole one more time thing, I'm doing this episode out of my own story. Struggling with pornography for 15 years, very often telling myself just one more time because it sounds measured. It sounds controlled. It sounds mature. It's just one more time. It's not rebellion. It's just this small negotiation. And, we frame it, right? We have these logical justifications of stress relief or just a temporary exception. These are extraneous circumstances. And the lack of immediate fallout reinforces the lie. Right? This is what actually keeps addictions thriving. They don't thrive in these big defiances and the fact that we go way, way off the handle. Maybe sometimes that happens, but typically addictions survive on small compromises. Now, the real cost is not the act because, like I said, the fallout initially is almost nothing. At least that's the way it kind of seems. So the real cost isn't the act itself, it's momentum. Because every one more time delays clarity, it weakens your resolve, it trains postponement, it channels resources for something poor and negative that could have been used for something that would actually grow your life and develop it. The biggest loss here isn't behaviorally. In fact, the biggest loss isn't things that happen, it's the things that don't happen, right? It's that you don't get uninterrupted time of focus. It's that you don't get honesty with where you're really at in your life. And you don't get momentum towards change and a life of meaning and value and purpose, right? And what you repeat, you reinforce, even when it's small, right? That's the key here is even when it's small, it is still repetitious and reinforcing, and that's a problem. Now, here's the identity tax that most men miss in all of this, because it's not just even the behavior, as I've said, and it's not just even the momentum. There's a cost to your God-given identity, because here's how this works, right? If you keep making small promises to yourself and then small compromises to yourself, over time you have a misalignment. You're making these promises, maybe they're not small promises, maybe they're big promises, but you made a promise and then now you are slowly falling short of what you promised. And so this erodes your self-trust. It erodes your integrity, right? Because integrity is, when your lifestyle matches your convictions. And so you don't have that internal alignment. And as a result, you have no confidence, right? So you stop believing your own stuff, right? You stop believing your intentions. You stop believing your own timelines. And a lot of the stuff that you say feels good and still sounds right. But in your heart of hearts, there's no substance because you have this track record with all these small compromises. And so that begins to plant self-doubt. right? You question yourself. It creates spiritual fatigue. All connection starts to feel exhausting when you don't believe in yourself. And of course, you have diminished authority. If you're in a position of leadership or someone somewhere else, you really don't lead the same way. And you don't even have to lead at work, even just at home. You're not going to lead the same way when you are compromising and telling yourself it's just one more time when you know it's not. Right? The deepest cost of this isn't the shame. It's the gradual loss of trust in self. Now, high functioning men pay this cost longer because life still works. The job's intact. The marriage seems all right. I'm meeting my responsibilities, right? With people that are high functioning, no one intervenes because everything looks good from the outside. And so delay feels safe and inconsequential, and success starts to become this cover for what is actually degradation of the inner life and then eventually the outer life, right? And to somebody who's maybe in that situation, because I typically find myself here, it's rare that I'm rock bottom and crashing down. What's more often the case is that I've plateaued. I'm in this middle and I can't seem to kind of break past and really get back into momentum. You don't have to crash to be stuck. You don't have to crash to be stuck, right? If you're not moving forward in the things that God's called you to and the promises on your life, and if you're not stepping more into Christ-like character, then you're falling away from it. There is no middle ground. Now, here's the good news. Freedom doesn't begin with outlandish rallies and promises. It doesn't begin with big vows, and it doesn't necessarily begin with a rock bottom. In fact, people ask me, what was your rock bottom moment? And I have some really dark moments that I'm not proud of, but truthfully, those rock bottom moments aren't what catapulted me into the 10 plus years of freedom that I have now. My rock bottom moments were just moments along the way that caused me to reflect, to learn, to heal, and to grow. Freedom doesn't begin with these things. It begins with interruption, right? One honest pause can restore awareness, return agency, shift momentum. You have to start reframing how we see this thing, because typically the guys that are saying just one more time, just one more, often on the flip side, almost to overcompensate, are trying to take drastic measures to get this thing out of their life that they keep doing, quote unquote, one more time. And I want to challenge you to actually be a little counterintuitive about this and to go slow and to start small. Small interruptions go a long way. So the first thing we need to understand is that delay is directional, right? There is no neutral, there is no middle ground. You are always moving towards something. And so if you're delaying, you're moving backwards, right? So on the flip side, not delaying or taking action is what moves us forward. Specifically, taking imperfect action. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to get every single thing right. You do need to move forward. Okay, reframe number 2 is we're not going to wait for a breakdown. We don't need a breakdown. We need a break point. We need to draw a line in the sand to say, all right, I'm going to shift directions. That's enough. And just one moment where you interrupt the cycle, one moment where you take a step in a new direction, that's all it takes to realign, to reshift, and reorganize things. Okay? And reframe number 3 is short containers catalyze momentum. Short containers catalyze momentum. The ministry school that I went to, to kind of, update sort of or upgrade my pastoring back in the day. That school was 5 months long. Now, I wouldn't call that a short container. I would call that some kind of a mid-sized container. But in that environment is where I healed. It's where I built community and vulnerable relationships. It's where I identified my core wounds, my core lies. I mean, that short container, that 5 months of concentrated effort to better myself so that I could become more of the man God made me to be, that beat any of the big promises, big vows that I made to God in the past. Short containers go a long way. Now, it has to be a container. It's got to be a controlled environment. It's got to have a dedicated time. And when you have something like, even 7 days, like for 7 days, it's not like I'm going to do something crazy, but for 7 days, I'm going to go to bed at 9 o'clock every day. For 7 days, I'm going to put my phone down by 9 p.m. For 7 days, I'm going to start the day 15 minutes in the Bible. For 7 days, when I look at somebody attractive and I catch myself, I'm just going to say, thank you, God, for that person. And I'm going to recite my favorite Bible verse. These are not long-term solutions. Okay? These aren't the things that actually get 10 plus years of freedom. But these are the things that sometimes you need to get started, and that's okay. A couple other thoughts about this, because I think this one's really important. It's okay to try something. Like, it's okay if you're not 99.99% sure about it. Now, if you're 20% sure, okay, take a little bit more time. But, if once you're like 70, 80% sure, try it. Try something. Don't just keep making the same vows and don't keep doing the same things. It's okay to try something different. And find a way to do it that's, relatively inexpensive so that if it fails, you're okay, right? That you're backed by something that catches you if it's a flop. That's my preference. If you're going to invest more, obviously you want to make sure you can't just be 60% sure. You got to be a lot more certain than that. One more thought is clarity is always better than confidence. So you can beat your chest, you can do whatever you want, you can rah-rah. But if you have clarity, if you really, really know what's going on and what your next step is, that's when you start to move forward. So freedom doesn't require this epic, dramatic moment. It just needs an honest interruption. So look, I get it. Just one more time feels harmless because it's quiet. But over time, hopefully you can see this, it trains you to postpone the life you actually want and to stop you from being the man that God made you to be. And if this episode is exposing that pattern for you, you don't need a dramatic vow or a life promise. You need an interruption. And so that's why I have actually recently built something called the Deep Detox. And this is a guided 7-day reset that's designed to help you slow the cycle down, see what's driving it, and stop granting permission on autopilot. Okay, there's no shame, no white knuckling, just clarity, structure, and a little bit of momentum to shoehorn you in a new direction. You can find more about it at deepcleancoaching.com/detox. That's deepcleancoaching.com/detox, and the link is also in the show notes there. That's a great place to start because freedom doesn't begin with everything changing at once. It really begins when the pattern finally stops long enough to be seen. Brother, God bless you. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next one.